I'm really, really excited because we are also introducing today really good friends of mine, the fabulous Halstead Otley. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today.
Welcome. Thank you.
So, for those people who don't know Halstead, when did we first meet?
My goodness,
I think it was in my first year at Progressive, so it must have been
definitely.
2015.
Yeah.
So what a good 8 years ago now. But you'd been around Progressive much longer than that. When did you first come to Progressive?
I came in 2010.
So
back
you
in
were like
2010. Yeah.
proper early adopter.
Yeah.
So actually, before we talk about Progressive, for those people, we'll do a proper intro to who you are. Let's talk about you before property, before Progressive.
Okay, yeah.
So for those who know Halstead of old, what did you do? What were you up to?
So before Progressive, I started my working life working for Ipswich Co-op. So I joined them as a management trainee, and I went on to become a store manager with them. So I used to run local co-ops. Did you not? Yeah.
Oh, see, there's a bit of a synergy there. I worked for Morrison's. I was a HR manager. I used to do the operational. I did their graduate course.
Yeah.
So that's actually quite stressful.
Yeah.
Being a store manager is not the easiest of things.
No,
so how do you then go from being store manager level in a retail environment to getting started in property? What kind of brought you into it?
Well, I started while I was working at the co-op.
Yep.
So my mum needed to raise some money. So she came to me as the oldest son and she said, me and your dad bought this house for £1,200. We've had it valued. They reckon it's worth $25,000. There's no way it can be. I'm just thinking 14 to 16 years, it's gone from 1,200 to 25,000. I don't know anything else that can do that. So I'm in the sixth form at school. I go to my mates, we've got to do property.
So it was that early on, sixth form at school?
Yeah, I said, come on, we've got to do, because sometimes you can just see something. I could just see that this will really, really work. So, but anyway, my mates didn't want to do it.
So you didn't actually get started then? So you had the idea, kernel of an idea of property investing because you'd saw £1,200 to £25,000, which is a significant jump in how long? 16 years, did you say?
Yeah.
Like, where in the world can you get a jump like that?
Yeah.
16 years, that big a jump.
Yeah.
So you initially started looking at it in sixth form. Your friends didn't want to do it.
No.
Did you then stop looking at it, or did you have a desire then still to do property?
Once I left sixth form, I got a job, as I said, with the co-op, but I had other jobs too. So my thing was that I would raise deposits and buy houses. So I didn't tell anyone I was doing it because nobody was interested. I still hung out with my mates and went out and had a good time.
But just didn't talk property?
I didn't talk property. So I went off and I sold insurance, I did odd jobs, I did whatever I could to raise deposits to buy houses.
So you worked really hard, even at a really young age, saving up the deposits, putting that down, getting a mortgage, buying the property, and then just renting it out.
Yeah.
So no kind of buy, refurb, rent, refinance that we know of today. It was just save up a deposit, buy a house. But that must have worked quite, very few people at such a young age would have the initiative to do that. Would you say it was quite difficult to do on your own though? Because if you're saying, we talk a lot now about community and the ability to have conversations with people and bounce ideas off people, challenges, sharing the challenges and getting advice. Was that quite difficult for you then?
I didn't find it difficult because luckily I had good people around me. So there was a lady that I worked with and I said, look, I want to buy a house. And she just talked me through the different steps. Find a house, find a solicitor, find someone to lend you the money.
So you had an unofficial mentor, really?
Yeah.
How cool is that?
I know, she talked me through it. And then my mortgage person, he also would guide me. Yeah. He found the mortgages. And then my solicitor, he also kept me on track. So I had a really good
robust network.
Yeah.
Which, anyone who's investing in property, I'm sure you would still agree to this day, the importance of having that team there.
Definitely.
So you were really lucky right from the start.
Right from the
so you built quite a substantial portfolio then before you came along to Progressive. How did you find Progressive? Or did they find you? Because I know most people now, you've probably been carpet bombed with emails or, one email every 72 seconds. How did you find Progressive or Progressive find you?
Yeah, well, obviously back in the 80s is when I first started buying my properties. I then found education because I teach martial arts. And one of my students lent me a book. I think it was called Your Money for Nothing and Your Property for Free or something like that. And I thought, oh my God, there's another way to buy property quicker. You can get all your money out and you can make money from it each month. And I thought, wow, this is great.
Exciting.
Yeah. And then through my letterbox came this 2-hour seminar that you could go to. So I went to this seminar and I just found education. Rob Moore was a speaker.
So it was someone else's event that Rob
Someone
Moore,
else's
because
event.
2010 Progressive wasn't what you know it as today, this huge engine, multi-million pound property company.
Yeah.
It was Rob as a kid, effectively.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he was just really starting out on his speaking journey, if you like.
Wow.
And so I heard him speak at this event. He made an offering, which I didn't take him up on. But I went to another event and
It was like a bad penny.
he's there again. Rob's there again. And this time I took him up on it. And the rest, as I say, is history. I came on board.
So came on board in 2010. So obviously you've seen a lot of highs and lows within the property market, both kinds of pre-education and post-education. There's been recessions, there's been booms, there's been, huge things along the way, loads of changes for us as landlords. Section 24, changes now to Section 21. So give us a couple of pointers along the way of the things that you found a challenge and how you overcome them.
As in, once I joined Progressive?
Yeah, just through the property career in general,
Yeah. Well, but the early days, we had this thing called MIRIS, mortgage interest relief at source, that sort of thing. So there was no buy-to-let mortgages and stuff like that.
Didn't exist?
No, it didn't exist. And so I had it on 2 properties. So I spoke to my mortgage guy and I said, what can I do here? I've got this on both properties and I'm not allowed. And he said, is there anyone that you trust? So, had you been my friend back then, Tony, I would have taken you for a drink.
Oh, you are nice, Halstead.
That's the sort of guy.
But we didn't know one another then, unfortunately.
And I would have said, look, you want to leave home, but you can't afford to. If my mortgage man can get you a mortgage, would you hold the mortgage for me? I'll make all the mortgage payments. And once you're ready to buy, I'll release you from the mortgage and I'll give you the endowment as a thank you.
Nice. So you were doing some really creative things early on, finding a solution to a problem.
Yeah.
And that worked.
That worked, yeah.
So you were finding people that effectively giving them homes. They were mortgage hosting for you, which was viable at the time. It wasn't a challenge. So you've seen the first introduction of, this is really exciting. You've seen the first introduction of buy-to-let lending.
Yeah.
You've seen the first introduction of Rightmove. You were invested in property prior to Rightmove.
Yes. Yeah.
How can you see, what are the biggest differences that you can see? Now, would you say it's easier to be an investor now or more difficult?
Oh God, it's easier.
Much easier.
Much easier. But then you see, then I was only, my goal at the time was to get 10 properties because you had the endowment.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know what an endowment was, it's this insurance that you take out. So you have an interest-only mortgage. You then pay into this insurance. It runs the duration of the mortgage. And then it will be worth, we were told, double what you paid for the property. So at the end of the mortgage, you pay off the mortgage and then you've got this left. So
a little pot of money.
25 grand, 10 houses. I've got 250 grand. Who needs any more than that? And that was my plan.
However. What changed?
The endowments didn't work. And then there's things like interest rates that I didn't know about. There's things like tax, which I didn't know about. The people who were hosting the mortgages for me, of course, I had to pay the tax for them.
Yep.
You just learn these things as you go.
Well, you're one of the most chill people that I've ever met, Halstead, and you're like, you learn these things. That will be the end of the world for many people when it comes to property investing.
Yeah.
You've always had, a level head and you deal with it. Many people would have left property investing at that point. What made you want to push forward with it?
I suppose because I had my goal of what I wanted. I've always wanted to have what we call financial freedom, if you like, and I've always wanted to work for myself. So growing up with not much money, I wanted to have money.
It was a driver.
It was a driver for me, yeah.
I think that you're probably one of the longest serving of the progressive community now, having been here since 2010. So from 2010 to current day, one of the big things that you did, as well as building a substantial portfolio, you've been hugely active in the network, both, you know, helping other people along the way. So you've always been a bit of a mentor to those newer people coming in. I remember first meeting you and it was like, Halstead's got all of this and we wanted to push forward in that way. When did you first set up? Because we're coming up to a very exciting anniversary, aren't we?
We are indeed, yes.
What led to you then taking over, because you set up one of the early PPN franchises, Progressive Property Networking. What made you decide that you wanted to be a host of a networking event?
The reason that I joined the networking group is because up until that point, I had always been doing stuff on my own. And it can be quite lonely doing property on your own. And so going to these events and starting to get the training, you think, right, there are other people out there. There must be some in my area.
Yeah.
So I wanted to find those. I wanted to then see if I could make friends with these up and coming entrepreneurs, you know, and property millionaires of the future.
Yeah.
And so I thought that would be a really good way to do that, to set up a community in my local area. I thought, right, let's become a PPN host in Ipswich.
I love the fact that you use the word community, because oftentimes people think when it comes to networking, you know, it's a load of men and women rocking up after a day job in a suit to a networking event, you know, tea and biscuits, listen to a speaker and off they go. But what you've created is a community, and the exciting anniversary that is up and coming is Halstead has been hosting the Ipswich PPN, Progressive Property Networking event, for 10 years now. That is a huge achievement.
Yeah.
What makes you keep pushing forward with it? Because you have a core group of people who come month in, month out.
Yeah.
You know, you've got 40, 50 people attending on a regular basis, which is absolutely huge, an amazing atmosphere, and I've been privileged to come and speak at Ipswich PPN. So what makes you keep pushing forward with it? Why do you keep doing it?
Well, firstly is, as I said, I like helping people. And so because property has allowed me the freedom that I've got, you know, the financial freedom that I've got, that I can do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. And I want to help other people do the same.
Yeah.
And I didn't come from money, and I want to show other people and help other people who haven't got money that shouldn't be why you don't do it. There are ways that you can do it. As long as you have the right morals and you're ethical and you work hard, then you can achieve those things. And so I put this community together to have those sorts of people, and I can help those people to come along and do that.
I love that even, you know, because a lot of people say, oh, you know, the sharks in the property world, and there is undoubtedly sharks in the property world. But I think people talk too much about the negatives and not the positives. The people like yourself who've been doing this month in, month out for 10 years, creating a safe space for people to come and network. The difference between, you know, the Halstead of today and the Halstead of old is that you still were able to do it, but you said it was a lonely process. You learned that actually I didn't know about this, and this, whether that be, you know, taxation or government legislation or whatever. We use the phrase a lot, you don't know what you don't know, but it's absolutely true. And so for anyone who is brand new and looking to get started, I would absolutely recommend you start getting some education of some format. So there is one thing that we will put into the comments down below, which is a document created by Rob's co-founder, Mark Homer, which is a downloadable report, gives you top tips on getting started and moving forward within your property career. So we'll put that in the links below. Halstead took that one step further, doing all of the progressive trainings. So tell us a little bit about what you do now, because obviously your career in property spans not just a number of years, but actually a number of decades. So what type of properties do you do? What do you really enjoy doing?
I started off with buy-to-lets. Really, I built that first, and that's what mainly gave me the financial freedom, I suppose, was doing just doing the buy-to-lets. And they're great because as long as you look after your tenants, they'll be there forever. I mean, but just on one thing there, I've got a tenant who's been with me for 14 years.
Wow.
Right, so I've seen their children grow up. He's now got a new partner and he wants to go off. And now we had a meeting, and the next generation are going to take over the property. So they're going to
still staying in the same family?
Yeah.
How lovely
it's gonna
is that?
stay in, yeah.
I absolutely love that. And I think you know, this is showcasing to people that although it is a business and property investing, you've talked openly about, you know, I didn't come from money and I wanted to generate money. But what I think, you know, shows through in everything that you do is your desire to help people and that ability to create, well, you're creating amazing homes because people wouldn't stay in for 14 years plus. You're giving people opportunities, you're supporting them on their way when they're, you know, moving off and moving into different pastures and onto different properties. But that just showcases what's possible for people from a generational, you know, you're creating generational wealth. And before we hit record, we were talking about our children and whether they're going to come into the property world, etc. But also generational support. for your tenants. So I absolutely love that. So 14 years and counting, longest serving tenant.
Yeah.
So is it just buy-to-lets that you do now? I know that you've done some really exciting projects. So tell us what your portfolio currently consists of, what types of properties you've got in there.
So did buy-to-lets. Once I've built that, then gave it to my letting agents and they managed those. I then did HMOs, built those, give them to an HMO manager. I now do serviced accommodation, have someone who does that. And then I've just done a commercial where I did 30 bungalows. They're now sold. I'm now building some industrial units.
Nice.
50 square metres, so 4 of those. And I've got some land where I've got some storage containers on there. And it might sound like, God, he does absolutely everything, which I can look at. But if you're starting out, I did buy-to-lets. Yep. Then I did HMOs, then I did serviced accommodation, then I did commercial. And talking about education, I did the courses that I needed, took the action, bought the properties, then moved to the next thing.
Yeah.
So although I bought all the courses, I didn't go and do all the courses at once because you just get overwhelmed and will do nothing. I sat down with my mentor and we worked out what I wanted to do. And then we said, right, this is the plan. You do this course and built this, you then do this and do that, do this. And that's what we did.
And so for those people who are kind of listening to that and thinking, I'd love to replicate that, I think it's really important that you're explaining you've got the knowledge, you put it into action. That's the most important part. There's plenty of people out there who get the knowledge, don't put it into action. You got the knowledge, you put it into action, you built the portfolio, and then you've said, I passed it off to that manager, I passed it off to that manager. It is possible to create it passively. There is hard work in doing so, but they become then quite leveraged, which frees you up the time to learn the next strategy of your HMOs, onto your serviced accommodation, now doing industrial units, commercial conversion. So you've got a very diverse portfolio.
Yeah.
What is your main focus right now when it comes to property?
Once the commercial buildings get built and we're doing the storage containers, once they're up and running, I think I'd like to do more of that.
Yep.
You know, but I'm still buying. You know, at the moment, I've got 4 refurbs going through for buy-to-lets. So I'll always do buy-to-lets. Now, it might sound strange, but I think that buy-to-lets over time will be the best cash flow and asset you can have. Yes, everyone talks about HMOs and serviced accommodation because at the start you can get, chunkier money. But over time, I think that buy-to-lets, and why do I say that? That yes, when you buy your buy-to-let, that you might only be cash flowing 150 to 250 pounds. But I've got some mortgages that are only £400, but you're renting them out for £1,250. I mean, how many 800 cash flowing properties do you need to be financially free? And the tenants don't change. And some of the tenants, Halstead, we need to put in a new kitchen. That's all right, we'll pay for it. We need to put new carpets in, but don't worry, we'll pay for it. Do you mind if we put a conservatory on the back? Do
you mind if we add some value to your property, Halstead? Is that okay with you?
And I'm having to think, I need to find something to offset against the rents. Let me do something.
Let me do a little bit of refurb just to claim something back through taxation. Do you know what? You are preaching to the choir here, because I am the biggest advocate of buy-to-let, buy, refurb, rent, refinance. And you've done it from the original kind of vanilla buy-to-let days when buy-to-let lending didn't exist, and still doing it in today's market. And I think the lesson here for everybody is that it doesn't matter what strategy you choose, as long as you get a bit of education in it, you put it into practice and you double down on it. And that over time, pretty much every investor will do every strategy, but it's nice to know that you're still doing the buy-to-lets that tick over, but you're doing some of the other strategies that excite you right now. So we're coming up to the 10-year anniversary, and we were talking just before we hit record, because the PPN, the Progressive Property Network, gives you the opportunity to help other people, but you've also, you've gained from that as well. No one invests for 10 years into a business and a networking opportunity if it's not working. So we were talking about how you've got, who did you get in your team? You've got Plumber, who is like a founding member or a diamond member within your PPN.
Yeah.
Mortgage broker?
So there's a guy who does bridging and stuff like that, and mortgages. So we've got a really good mortgage broker there. We've got letting agents. So one of my letting agents looks after my properties. So, there's a really, really good diverse team there. And the reason, one of the reasons why I wanted to create PPN was so that it was a really safe place for people to come along and find those trusted, what I call the suppliers to property. so that you haven't got to go to the Yellow Pages. Do you remember the Yellow Pages? You're too young. You're too young to remember
the
it.
Yellow Pages. I remember that advert as well.
And the only people that got any business were the A's and B's. If your business started with Z, you never got a phone call, right? So,
it's true though, isn't it? Like, and now in today's world, with there being so much noise around the property market, not just the, we can offer you this, but also the property buy-to-let is dead, the property market's going to crash. There's so much noise and so much negativity. It's nice to know for those people who are looking to get started that there are safe hubs like the Progressive Property Community, like the Progressive Property Network that you've set up. How can people get hold of you if they want to? Right. What's the best method?
So I'm on Facebook. So just find me on Facebook, Halstead Otley on Facebook. We've also got a Progressive networking page, so Progressive Property Ipswich, you can find that, or PPN Ipswich, what are you looking for? So any of those will do, or LinkedIn, so I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. So if you want to get hold of Halstead, that's how you do. If you've got any questions for him that you want me to pose to him, or you'd like some answers, you want to dig the dirt, you want to get some more information, then that's the thing to do. Pop it into the comments below and we'll grab Halstead for another interview in the not too distant future.